Peace does not come rolling in on the wheels of inevitability, said the Reverend William Sloane Coffin. We can't just wish for peace. We have to will it, fight for it, suffer for it, demand it from our governments, as if peace were God's most cherished hope for humanity, as indeed it is. I'm sure Monica Willard agrees. She is a URI representative to the United Nations. She has worked with the UN Department of Public Information on the annual student observance for the International Day of Peace at the UN headquarters. She helped establish World Interfaith Harmony Week, annual observances at the UN and around the world. Please welcome back Monica Willard to the Global Peace Education Day Conference.
Monica, thank you so much for joining us today. Your career represents a fantastic journey of service and commitment to humanity. You're a charter member of the United Relgions Initiative, and you represent them at the United Nations. You're co-chair of the International Day of Peace NGO Committee at the United Nations, and you've helped establish World Interfaith Harmony Week around the globe, including conflict zones. You've even received the Spirit of the United Nations Award for your work promoting spiritual values. I just revel at your career, and I'd like to know, how did this journey of becoming a peace builder begin for you?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for having me. It is an honor to be here, particularly as we're addressing Peace Education Day. And to talk a little bit about a peace builder's career is a real honor. Thank you for inviting me. It actually began as a community activist. I was a mother and got very involved with the American Association of University Women and started working with my community. And there was this project that came up in the 80s, and it was called a ribbon around the Pentagon. And I'm going to hold the piece up for you because to me, this says so much. It is 1 meter by 1/2 meter, and people were asked to put on cloth what you cherish most about the earth and want to protect. And it was, actually, that was the second rendition. It was put on cloth what you could not bear to think of as lost forever in the event of a nuclear war. And this artist put on the world. This was done, and they were tied together around each state capital in May of 1985, and then the state capitals merged in DC, and 23 miles were tied together around the Pentagon, over the bridge, down the Capitol Mall, down by the Lincoln Memorial, down to the Capitol. And most of us didn't see the whole thing until afterwards when we saw footage of it. But we held different panels, and I've never been good with right and left and went the wrong way to get to the New York ribbons. And I came across the one that I had made, and someone else was holding it. And I don't know what I traded with, but I got the one that I had made that had gone to Albany in May, that went down to Washington, and held onto that ribbon because it came from our branch of the American Association of University Women, and everybody had contributed a little bit. And it was just a beautiful way to celebrate it with my family. And at that point, in 1985, I had a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old and 9-year-old. And we were down there as a family because we stood for this art project that we put on cloth, our hearts, our prayers. And that's what I started representing at the UN. We brought it to different UN events, and it was an exhibit during the Iraq War. And they said, you have to become a non-governmental organization. And so the Ribbon International became a non-governmental organization in 1982. And I started representing them. And we brought ribbons to the various events at the Church Center, at different things at the UN, to the Earth Summit. to the Beijing conference. Throughout the 90s, we put ribbons all over the place, and we had them because people could hold on to them. And we thought nuclear weapons had really been decreased, which they had substantially with the Reagan and Gorbachev decisions. Intermediate missiles were abolished. And we were looking towards, what do we need to do to protect the earth? And that was how the symbol so much came about, bringing protection to the earth. And the event of any nuclear exchange would certainly destroy the earth as we know it, because the damage would just be unimaginable.
Absolutely. I am so struck by, well, number one, when I think about your commitment over the years to nuclear disarmament, it was such a big dream. I feel that you were just so, honestly, anyone would be so brave to have, to commit their service to that and your work, So number one, I want to say thank you for that. Tell me though, what was it about that idea of eliminating it so much that gave you the passion and fervor to give all these years to it?
Well, it actually fits into the theme of Peace Education Day, because as a freshman in high school, I had assigned reading Hiroshima by John Hersey. And that book told the story of 5 survivors of that day and what they had to live through and what they experienced immediately after the bombing of Hiroshima. And it just changed my life. And I didn't know the level of impact it would be, but it was something that, because of that book, it got me interested in it. And I was the issue that brought us to the UN as an NGO. And of course, the United Nations has had many treaties on it. And I have brought ribbons to prayer vigils, because to me, the exact number of missiles, the exact number of how the level of detonation, the horrors, weren't my passion about it. My passion about nuclear weapons is, this is an immoral action. We cannot kill 180,000 people on one day with a bomb and justify it in any way. And I look back at Hiroshima and then again at Nagasaki, and I think of where we are today, and my passion and my concerns have grown deeper. During the Cold War, the Union of Concerned Scientists created a doomsday clock to measure how close we are to destroying ourselves. And it started out at 7 minutes to midnight. It was recently moved to 3 a number of years back. But in January of this year, it was moved to 100 seconds. 100 seconds, not even 2 minutes. And that was January. Then we had the invasion of the Ukraine. And then we've had the threats of the nuclear usage, or you can't do this because I have nuclear weapons. And then you have China responding some, and you have what's going on in North Korea. And we are learning that what we've really always known is that the only safety that we can have is a world without nuclear weapons. And it's not going to happen overnight. It needs a plan. And gee, we've even had a plan in place. There is a nuclear non-proliferation treaty, and part of that is for the nuclear nations to disarm. We look at with horror when someone launches a rocket or potentially becomes a nuclear country, but we have not taken enough into consideration the horrors of holding 13,000 nuclear weapons between the United States and the USSR. In 1945, when they were released in Hiroshima and Nagasaki by the United States, the only country to have ever used nuclear weapons in war, there was no response. It didn't exist. And it started a whole arms race where scientists, where all kinds of people were used in the making and mining of bombs and nuclear elements, where there was been testing, were all kinds of a scientific, environmentally devastating community built around nuclear weapons. We must lead the charge to eliminate nuclear weapons, to promise a no first use, and to recognize the fact that this would be such total destruction, because this would not be a bomb that nobody would answer to. Automatically, others would be released, and there would be a nuclear annihilation. So to me, if you have the choice between self-destruction or winning something that may be meaningless because you've destroyed so much of what's already there, or choosing a life where you realign your priorities and put the money and the scientific energy and the will of the nations to work together on issues such as ridding the ocean of plastics and changing how we get energy so that we're not destroying things through mining. There are so many other things that our money can go to learn new science, new ways of being. And particularly what we need is the call to do it and the guidance and the moral leadership to bring us to this necessary change for future generations.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. You said that we need new ways of being, and that is absolutely true. I'm thinking about what you mentioned about the nuclear disarmament agreement between Reagan and Gorbachev. And I'm thinking about the fact that they had a relationship. And regardless of the ways in which they might have disagreed as men, they had a relationship that helped them to come to the agreements that they did, that helped the whole world move forward. So tell me, how can we use peace building skills to help corporations and world leaders have a different relationship and to be in right relationship with the planet and the people?
Wow, that is a big and important question, and I wish there was just one answer. And I wish it was a magic wand that we could all wave together to accomplish. But I think what it takes, first of all, is a dedication to really work together collaboratively as a whole. We live on one planet. One of the things that was decided through this relationship was that a nuclear war could never be won. Therefore, it should never be fought. That was restated again between Putin and Biden in 2021. What are we doing to make that come into reality? And one is to begin talking. The UN right now is holding the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review. I don't know what it will accomplish. I pray so much that something gets accomplished to shift, because we know in every cell in our body that nuclear weapons are not just being created to be created. They will be used by accident or intent unless we eliminate them. There is now the treaty to prohibit nuclear weapons. And one of the things that's an important contact of that is to remove the threat. And I think that speaks so largely to peace building in general. Not many people like to move because they're being threatened to do so. It doesn't build peace. It might get somebody to shift off a piece of land or to give something away they don't want to do. But a threat is not the way to go. So partially, I think we need to realize that our values, the way we live, the things we buy, should reflect how we are building community, and not purchasing things in excess of what we need, not throwing things away without thinking twice. We need some reshifting in our values, then that begins with education. it doesn't just happen automatically. The world stopped and looked at Greta Thunberg when she sailed across because she didn't want to use the energy. And they laughed at some of the choices she might have made. But her determination and her values were lived out. So to speak one thing and to do something else, to base everything on what gives me the most, regardless of what it means to someone else, when you know. We have to start working much more in relationship with one another, with our products, and something as simple as learning about our water sources and keeping them clean. And that could make a decision, even if it's based for our best, it makes a decision for everyone, because the water eventually flows down and it isn't just mine. And so I hope that this shift to us and to look at things from different ways, what might be really, really good for one person, even in a small family, could be very difficult for someone else. And how do we do this? Well, you can put somebody down, or you can threaten them, or you can find ways to work together. And I think that's what we're really being called to do, is to get to know others, to realize our interconnection, and to really take into account our own personal actions. And as my sister reminds me, that if we would all be thin if we just made different choices on what we ate, perhaps. But there are times when it's not just our own personal body we need to consider. We need to consider, and all the time, that we live on a shared planet. There are limited resources, and we must respect the fact that there are limits, and we need to live within the boundaries of what is acceptable, not just for us, but for future generations. We truly, I'd like to really share one of the motivating things, because I'm sitting here with it, and it's the nuclear prayer. And I want to share this language with you and with others, if you don't mind. Is this a time that I could share this? The beginning and the end are in your hands, O Creator of the universe. And in our hands, you have placed the fate of this planet. We who are tested by having both creative and destructive power in our free will, turn to you in sober fear and an intoxicating hope. We ask for your guidance and to share in your imagination in our deliberations about the use of nuclear force. Help us to lift the fog of atomic darkness that hovers so pervasively over our earth, your earth, so that soon all eyes may see life magnified by your pure light. Bless all of us who wait today for your presence and who dedicate ourselves to achieve your intended peace and rightful equilibrium on earth. In the name of all that is holy and all that is hoped. This was written by William E. Swing, the founder of the United Religions Initiative and the founder of Voices for a World Free of Nuclear Weapons. But to me, when I think about this, our generation and the generations alive now, are holding the fate of our planet. And we need to plan to protect it, to care for it, to nurture it, and to do all that we can to help it flourish, and especially our children, and teaching them the importance of knowing the other, taking care of our resources. But we can't just tell them, we need to model it. And so some of the best peacekeeping skills I think we need to practice daily at home. We need to listen. We need to understand. We need to care. And as we use those and put them into action, we need to educate ourselves. Because sometimes we believe one thing until we meet someone who has a totally different belief. And you know what? They might both be right, but we're so used to I'm right, you're wrong, that we don't look at the fact that they might both be right in either some way or in different analysis. One of the things I use is there was probably 15 ways to do most anything. Some are more cost efficient, some are more time efficient, some are get more beauty, some are just unsloppy. You could choose all kinds of things, and it's not that something is wrong. It's different than what you might want. So if we just even start to expand our ways of thinking and doing little things and knowing there's always going to be differences. And I think that sometimes helps too. I am so honored to sign today this call to make Peace Education Day a United Nations observance, an official observance. And I invite all of you listening to this and those that we can invite beyond this conference to join us in signing this petition online. May Peace Education Day get established soon. We need it.